Select Board meeting for January 18th. As we always do, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'm going to just read the notice at the top of the agenda. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote means. Members of the public who wish access to the meeting may do so in the following manner. Walpole Media YouTube will have the meeting available, as well as on local cable access TV. No in-person attendance or members of the public will be permitted, and public participation in any public hearing conducted during this meeting shall be by remote means. Every effort shall be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technology reads. I will also be doing any roll call votes. Any votes we take will be by roll call. So Jim, why don't I turn it over to you? We'll start discussion of the fiscal 23 budget.
Sure. So let me get into it, and then I'll take some questions at the end. So as it stands right now, I have a balanced budget, which is what you have before you. There are a few items that I have to finalize, and those items include the school department budget, the health insurance rates, the governor's FY23 budget, which is set to be released on January 26th. Some items of note in the FY23 budget include police department budget's up 7%. Most of the increase is due to the 3% COLA and the 2% EpiPen stipend that was approved at town meeting. This starts in 23, as well as fully funding some of the new police officer positions that were partially funded for last year. I was able to add one new police officer to get the Walpole Police Department up to 48 total police officers budgeted for. I also added one new crossing guard. On the fire department, that budget's up 7% also. As I did with the police department budget, most of the increases is due to the 2.5% COLA for the salary increases. Last year at this time, we had 44 total firefighters funded. This budget fully funds 47. So this allows for 4 shifts of 11, the day lieutenant position, the deputy chief, and the chief. Walpole Public Schools budget is currently up to 4.07%. School committee members have explained that more funds are needed to meet their goals and objectives. I'm waiting for some additional information from Superintendent Goff and Chair Buckley. I did cut back on the building maintenance line items. If other revenue funds are identified, I plan on adding some money back into that budget on the town side. As I previously stated, I'm waiting on the governor to release his budget to get a better sense of what I should do with state aid going forward. I don't expect much of a change, but maybe we'll see a little bit of movement on that right now. As for health insurance, right now I have an 8.5% insurance rate increase factored into the budget. The Mass Municipal Association is holding their annual meeting at the end of this week virtually. And at that time, Maya will release their high and low projections for insurance rates for member communities. I'll have a better sense on Friday and Saturday as to where we stand with this. I do not expect to actually have Walpole's insurance rates until sometime in early mid-February. This figure is really going to impact the entire budget because I have to adjust the budget to factor in any new positions on the school and town sides. As for the revenue projections, I've increased new gross significantly this year. We budgeted 650 in our current year, and in FY23, I bumped that up to 950,000. Motor vehicle excise was increased by 100,000 over this current year. I'm not comfortable pushing it much further, given the uncertainty with the auto industry. License and permits have been increased by $270,000. I've also increased the ambulance receipts by 151,000. I didn't push it any further because right now we're planning on using 450,000 this spring to set aside funds to order a new ambulance. The reason we've moved up the new ambulance 6 months is because of the obviously the lead time in getting new vehicles, and given the 750-day window we were given for the 2 fire engines, I think it's wise to move that ambulance up 6 months so we don't lose it on the back end of the fall. A few other items of note is net metering revenue. We've been advised by both our DOR rep and the DOR attorneys that although the end result is the same, the accounting for this special revenue fund is not done in accordance with their new rules and regulations. Instead, we must record 100% of the funds taken in as local receipts in the payment to the vendor as a budgetary expense in the general fund. Bottom line, it's really not an increase to the budget. It's going to look like one, but we're making up for it on the local receipt side. It's just a different way of accounting for them. For now, I'm going to hold off on making any changes to the budget until I receive clarification on the 3 items I mentioned tonight. I'd like to ask for the board to give me permission to deliver the budget message and a balanced budget no later than the end of February. You may recall that I requested this extension last year. However, it was not necessary, and I was able to deliver the budget message on February 2nd last year. This year, the budget message per the charter is due February 7th. I may have all of this information completed by February 7th. However, if I do not, I don't want to be in a position where I deliver a budget message to the board and the finance committee, and I have to go back and ask to make some changes. With all of that being said, does anyone have any questions with the information and budgets I provided you this evening?
Jim, why don't I just start off and just say, I think it's smart to wait until we have more clarity on the state budget and especially on health insurance. So that's kind of a no-brainer from my point of view. Let me go around and see if anybody else on the select board has any comments or questions. Jim O'Neill?
So glad to hear that we have a balanced budget. And, I went through it with you early last week, Jim, and I got most of my questions answered there. I am pleased to see that we were able to increase the fire department and to get the police department an additional police officer as well. I think we're going to have challenges, particularly on the fire side, filling those roles. But I think if we get going on that immediately, we'll be able to get that done. And I think it's an important step in our overall public safety program. So I was pleased to see that. I know that we're still waiting on the final numbers from the schools, and we'll see what that comes out to. Over a 4% increase in the schools, a healthy increase, of course, and we'll see what else the schools need and see where the revenue is coming in. I think the big questions obviously around the insurance, and that'll be probably the middle of February before you have a good handle on that. So I agree with Mark. I think it makes sense to delay the budget message until after we actually have the insurance number, because that's going to tell us a lot about how the revenues will come, what revenues we'll have available to us, and whether we have deficits or gaps, and can we resolve some of the challenges with perhaps schools and also the building maintenance cuts that you've made. But having gone through all this in great detail with you, Jim, I think you've done a really good job. I want to commend the finance team and all the department heads for their diligence in going through their budgets and bringing forth what I think are reasonable requests. And again, we have to kind of wait on the revenue side of the equation, as we always end up doing, and hopefully it comes in where we've got it projected, and we'll see how that goes. But I feel good about it. I don't really have any questions, Mark.
Thanks, Jim. Let me go to Glenn.
Yeah, I think Jim made some good comments there. I also met with Jim Johnson. We talked about the budget and we reviewed some of these details. And so, yeah, I think it's a good budget. I think the highlights and some of the drivers are going to be personnel, specifically in the police, fire, and schools. And I think it's good that we're focusing on these 3 areas. And there will be some costs associated with that. And I think it's fine. I think, for example, with the police department, we're going up another police officer. And I guess my position in this firefighters going up several firefighters. So my position on adding new positions and staff and personnel with the high costs that are associated with that, is that I want to try to do it on a somewhat predictable year-over-year pace. As a town, we're growing, but at a moderate pace. So I don't really see a big need once we get through the catch up with the fire department and adding several firefighters. I think we've already done that on the police side. And so I like the idea of adding 1 police officer this year. And then next year, because we do this every year, so we'll be back 12 months from now. And next year, I know the police department would like to see 52 officers instead of 48, but I think we can get there. But I don't think we need to come back next year and say, let's add 3 officers. I think we can maybe add 1 more next year, maybe add 1 more the year after that. And as a town, we're growing at a moderate pace, and so we can add personnel also at a moderate pace. So on the fire side, I like the idea of playing catch up. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's okay, it's fine, but once we do catch up, let's add a firefighter per year. And if maybe we can skip a year, that's great too. And that way, there's no surprises. There's no big budget busters coming down the pipeline. I do think on the school side, we do need to see some more details. We're getting greater than 4% for them. I think that's a big win. And I do think there's a way that we could potentially do a little bit more if we tweak the revenue projections. I mentioned some ideas I had to Jim on that. So obviously that's something we can look a little closer at. But overall, I think it's a great budget. Oh, I do have a quick question though. Jim, could you just give me a little bit more detail? We talked about the cost of a police officer being right around $55,000, and I didn't get a chance to ask you for more details because I know there's more costs associated with that, health insurance. That'll be in a different line item on the budget. I don't know if every new officer gets a patrol car, equipment. I mentioned health insurance for pensions. Could you just give me, is there a better number than that 55,000 that you could give me overall?
Yeah, so new police officer we have budgeted is coming in at $54,247 a year. On top of that, you have to factor in the Quinn bill, which is trying to see here. On the high end, we budgeted. You factor in Quinn, you factor in outfitting them. They're not each given a patrol car. They share them as the ships go on. And for each new Quinn, we're budgeting a range of $5,400 to $6,700. To outfit them, it's about $5,000 an officer. So those are the rough costs on the town side.
Is the Quinn a recurring item and the outfit is a one-time item?
The outfit is a one-time. The Quinn is, if they have the education, they get it annually.
Got it.
And you had asked about health insurance. I'm just pulling up that number right now. I think all in, it's about 20 between what the employee pay and what the town pays. It's about, I think, 27,000 per employee if you take the family plan. But depending on if they're a 60, they're going to be coming in at a 60/40. So rough numbers, the town would have to come up with, I think, roughly $20,000 for each on the family plan side of things.
Got it. And is there any way to estimate pension costs? Is that 11%?
I could probably work with it's minimal, honestly. Okay. Big picture, 50. They look at the salary. They don't look at overtime and everything else. And big picture on a $110 million budget, 54,000 on an assessment from the county, which is about $5.56 million. It's minimal for a first-year officer.
Okay, got it. That helps. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Let me go to Ben.
Thanks, Mark. And I'd echo what everyone has said thus far. Maybe even take it a step further. For anyone who's watching this recording and has hung on this long, to understand all the work that goes into this budget that we're talking about, and we've all discussed that we've seen it and talked with Jim. But I definitely want to thank Jim and his team again for the work that's gone into it. It's over a month that they've been putting in time on this, all of the department heads sharpening their pencils, as well as Dr. Goff and everyone on the school committee putting in the time to pull together everything that we need, everything that the schools need, and then having a lot of meetings really and talking about it, making some really hard decisions around improvements that need to be made. And as Jim O'Neill alluded to, there's a number of areas in town, both with upkeep and maintenance of town facilities, as well as the schools that have taken cuts to make this a balanced budget. And so certainly through some of the measures that Jim Johnson described, we may yet have some savings in the budget or some additional money. We'll be able to go back to those programs or personnel that departments have requested be able to meet those needs. So it is an iterative process, and to follow back on the discussion with pushing it past February 7th, I'm certainly comfortable with that. And the insurance number that everyone has highlighted is such that has such an impact on the numbers and the final budget. I think that's a very reasonable and responsible way to move forward. But I don't have any further questions, Mark. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. I did want to make another comment. I mean, members of the select board have met with finance committee and school committee over the last couple of months. And one of the reasons I'm glad we're going to sort of hold the budget in place until we have better numbers is it was very interesting and kind of startling to hear about children in the schools, not only in Walpole, but in Massachusetts and across the country, who have been very adversely affected by remote learning. Some kids thrive in that environment, but many do not. And I think a lot of the changes, and I'll let Bill Buckley or Bridget, if she happens to be on board tonight, speak to that if they'd like to for a minute. But just there's a lot of kids who didn't do well during COVID with remote learning. And what's interesting is if you think about it, when a child moves from 4th grade to 5th grade, that 5th grade class is geared up to teach certain things, assuming they've gotten to a certain point. So I think a lot of the changes that the schools are talking about are really to catch kids up to where they should be at grade level and give them their best opportunity to go forward with strong learning. Math is a good example. If you miss a couple of key fundamentals in 4th grade, 5th grade math is going to be brutal because you just don't understand a couple of the building blocks. And, the same is true with reading and language and sciences and, pretty much everything. So, and I'm sure the school committee, I know they've talked about that at school committee meetings and they'll talk more about it in the future. But it was just interesting to me that because of COVID, we are in a mode of needing to help some of the kids get caught up quickly, and delaying their catching up is not good for them and it's not good for their classmates. So I just wanted to add that comment. We are in a little bit of a workshop format tonight. Normally we don't reach out and ask everybody else to speak, but I see Bill Buckley. Bill, is there anything you would like to add to that comment?
Through Mr. Chair, I've never said no to speaking before. So, but I think it's very important. We've said this amongst ourselves a number of times. First off, my colleagues on the school committee, Mrs. Gallivan and Ms. Sarek are on the Zoom with me, and others are watching the YouTube live. I'm really grateful for the collaborative effort we've attacked this budget with. And I think you're correct. The pandemic has been a roller coaster organizationally, but also financially for the school department. We began this with revenue projections that were really quite difficult to pinpoint. And so we cut back our budgets, and we now see students with real demonstrable and severe needs, some of them who have not done well in remote learning. We're grateful that they're all back in school with us. But I think I can speak for all my colleagues when I say we feel very strongly and in a unified fashion that we need to look at our school budget this year in a different way, on a different footing. There are some programs and necessities that are not long-term, that are specifically designed to help students get back on the horse and get back up to grade level and strive and survive and succeed in our district. And there are other long-term projects, such as the implementation of full-day kindergarten, the completion of that implementation after 7 years, that are efforts that we have made and we have kind of postponed throughout the pandemic. But I think when you look at the needs of the district, they're very representative of what our community has been telling us for a long time they're looking for. We're talking about STEM educators in the elementary school. We're talking about a position to assist at the high school for retention and to reduce dropout rates and allow students to thrive in the higher grades, as well as looking at English teachers, as well as a number of other positions are centered around mathematics, the sciences, writing, those kind of core academic important subject areas that give our students the foundation that they can go forth and succeed in life and in the wider world and community. So we're very grateful to you and to Jim Johnson and your colleagues for kind of pushing the clock and the calendar forward a little bit. My colleagues and I will be having our first budget hearing on Thursday night, and as statutorily required by the charter, voting a budget at next Thursday night's school committee meeting at that high number. But we're, I think, really grateful for the number of dialogues we've had, both with the selectmen. I see, Josette and Mr. Trudell and some other folks from the FinCom who've been kind of helpful partners as well. And we're hoping to get as close to our number as possible, obviously, but we're excited to work together with you.
Thanks. I also see Superintendent Bridget Goff here. Bridget, would you like to say anything?
I think Bill Buckley pretty much did a really nice job. Thanks, Bill. No, it's just, we all know that teaching and learning, we're impacted in such different ways. And, all of us, even families included, were required to do their jobs and delivering services and helping their children also in different ways. So just, looking at our budget in these positions, our focus is, yes, we look at catching students up, but also that we need to continue to foster the sense of belonging, and then also monitor their understanding and really ensure great appropriate instruction, taking them where they are, moving them forward, and, closing the gap simultaneously. So that's kind of like our refocus. We say refocus, reimagine, and reconnect. And that's our goal this year and moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. I also see Nancy Gallivan and Kristen Sarek from school committee are on. Would either of you like to say anything?
I think everybody has said it pretty well so far.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Kristen.
I'm good too.
Thanks, Nancy. Let me go to FinCom next. I see Mark Trudell and Josette are both here. Do either of you have any questions for Jim or anything you'd like to say?
I'm good for now.
Thanks, Mark.
I'm good for now also. I agree with Jim of the hesitation of doing an early presentation when we don't have all the facts. So why duplicate until we have actual numbers? And the insurance always comes in mid-February, but there are other factors involved that we don't have answers to yet. So I'd rather go on the side of caution, as Jim is doing, and make sure we have the full picture before going forward.
Thanks, Josette. I also see that Ed Fosberg from Capital Budget is here. Ed, do you have any comments or questions?
Not at this time.
Thanks, Ed. I think I've gotten to everybody. Jim Johnson, anything else you want to add?
No, just real quick, just to clarify, I read the numbers real quick. So based on my numbers, Glenn had asked me specifically, what's the insurance cost? So family plan, I'm budgeting about 28,000 for a family plan and about 10,700 for an individual. So on the town side, that comes out to about 17,000 for a new employee for family and 6,400 for individual. So just, I wanted to get those numbers right. And Mark, the only other thing I'd ask is I think you have a motion there to grant me an extension. Again, if I have everything in on time and I want to have it all in, I will deliver the budget message on or before the 7th, but I just want to cover ourselves. So I think you have a motion there.
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the request of the town administrator for an extension of no later than the end of February to deliver the budget and the budget message.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. I'll do a roll call vote. Glenn?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Jim?
Aye.
Mark? Aye. Thanks, everybody. So let's move on to our second item, which is really to continue our discussion of the ARPA money. For those at home, Walpole's going to get $7 million more or less of American Recovery Act money over the next couple of years. One chunk of that money is now available to us. So we had a prior meeting and we've had some other discussion about ARPA, some of the projects that we'd like to be able to do in the town that affect a lot of people and that will have a lasting impact on the future of Walpole. And so we're continuing the discussion now. Jim, why don't I turn it over to you?
Sure. So let me kind of review everything with all of you. So as you may recall, Walpole is set to receive $4.7 million in funding through Norfolk County. 25% of that funding, which is $1,186,000, is available now. Since our last discussion, I've worked with town officials to prioritize the lists to submit to the county for consideration. I've also worked with County Administrator John Cronin and Assistant County Administrator Bill Buckley and asked them to review and provide feedback on some of the projects that were submitted for consideration. It should be noted that this is the first of multiple requests that is going to be submitted to the county. In total, the ARPA funds on the town side is $2.6 million and 4.7 from the county. In total, as you mentioned, Mark, it's about $7.3 million set to come to the town of Walpole over the next few years. The ARPA funds are considered grants under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, and they are governed by the Select Board. They're not subject to town meeting appropriation. Projects I'm asking for the Select Board to consider this evening include Winter Street Sewer Expansion Project. Estimated cost is $450,000. This expansion will extend the current existing sewer line further down Winter Street and provide more sewer access for residents in Walpole. Project number 2 is a bridge rehab design at East and Elm, $500,000. This plan would be used to use the funds to prepare plans, specifications, bid documents for rehab of the 2-lane bridge on Elm Street and the 2-lane bridge on East Street at the intersection of 27 and East. Both bridges have shown significant deterioration, and each one cross over the Neponset River. Being a sole source aquifer, I'm mindful that it is important to monitor any and all stormwater runoff through the riverways that run through and ensure that Walpole's water quality is maintained. Next project is the Walpole High School HVAC improvements for $150,000. This would pay for the replacement of the HVAC system at the high school. The investment will provide ventilation and improvements to the high school. You may recall that the town is set to receive $200,000 for this project from the state through efforts made by Walpole State Delegation. However, working with Mike Frisha and Don Anderson, the estimates have come in at about $300,000 to $350,000 in total for this system. So that will make up the balance to cover the cost there. Next project is the June Street drainage repair, $280,000. There's a significant problem with the water table levels on June Street that has led to most of the homes flooding on a regular basis. The proposed work will include repair and installation of a new drainage line to address the problem. And next project is the bathroom facilities at the South Walpole Community Athletic Complex. This project will allow the town to address the needs of the community. The programs and services that are set to be offered at the South Walpole Community Athletic Complex include services designed to build stronger neighborhoods in Walpole. Walpole, like many communities across the Commonwealth, have had significant increases in the use of parks in our open space during the pandemic. The activities in and around the South Walpole Community Athletic Complex promote healthier living environments and outdoor recreation and socialization to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Total for all these projects is $2,155,000, and that is an estimated total. I note that the sum of these totals identified here is greater than the 25% of the amount we're set to receive from the county. I'm requesting that the board approve all of these projects in anticipation that the actual cost of some of these projects will come in lower than estimated, and or one or more of the projects may not be looked upon favorably by the county review team. If all of the projects are reviewed by the county and approved, we will ask if they will fund these items now, or we can wait until the next round of funds are made available this spring. Once these requests are considered and approved by the county, I'll report back to the select board and let you know what we've received access to. Going forward, board members and everyone else on this call should know that the process may change. Just last week, I received notice from the U.S. Department of Treasury that they issued their final rule governing the use of ARPA funds, which significantly increased the flexibility for cities and towns, particularly in the way they calculate local tax revenue loss attributable to the pandemic. So bottom line is, this is the process that's in place now. but it could change. And it seems like with everything with ARPA funds or ESSER funds or anything that's coming as a result of the pandemic, the rules are going to change one way or another. And that's it for me. Any questions?
Yeah, let me open it up for questions. Glenn, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Jim, so the slate of projects that we've got in front of us, they're pretty good. The Winter Street Sewer Extension Project, the HVAC improvements, obviously we've got some funding, so we want to finish that off. And the bathroom facilities are three that I definitely support. And I do support the June Street drainage repair. In fact, I have to drive down that street every day. And anybody who goes to visit it will see just covered in ice. There's water everywhere. It freezes. There's been drainage issues there for a long time. So I will point out that we did approve at fall annual town meeting. If I'm correct, we approved the same $280,000. So we have funding for that project. And so I just think that there's a lot of worthy projects, and it might make sense to put that one off. So it's a very important project. I think we could move forward on it, or we could hold off until the spring, or we could find out what the answer is to the bathroom facilities and the other two projects, and then we can decide what to do there. So I guess my support tonight is for 3 out of the 4 projects. I do have a question for you, Jim. In the case of, say, the bathroom facilities, which we're estimating at 775, if that comes in at, say, 700,000, what happens to the other 75,000? So if the county approves it at 775, does the 75,000 that we don't end up needing flow into free cash, or does it go back to the county that we'd use for a different project, or how would that work?
I know that we will have to report to the county and their auditors as to exactly how much was used. I don't believe we can just go ahead and say, okay, this project came in $100,000 less. We're going to close it out to free cash. It would have to be, we'd let them know that we spent 100,000 less than we expected. I would guess that they would say, okay, we'll allow you to roll that forward towards a future project if that's eligible under these ARPA funds. This is one of the reasons why I'm asking for over the 25%, because I expect some of these may get kicked back. And in fact, just jumping back to your June Street comments, and so in total, what you have is 5 projects here. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that 2 of the projects, the bridge repair for the drainage repair for June Street at 280, and just about $212,000 for the bridge rehab design for the Elm Street Bridge was approved at town meeting. Why am I putting in 2 projects that were already approved by town meeting? Because they're eligible to be reimbursed. And I'm mindful that we could take these funds in and go back to town meeting and reappropriate the $212,000 and $280,000 in the fall for a future project. It allows us to have some more flexibility there, Glenn. There's some projects that I'm sure the town will want to do over the next few years that just simply don't qualify under this ARPA guidelines that have been issued and what the county's sticking to. So I know these projects, both of these will likely qualify, and it'll just provide us with greater flexibility at a future town meeting for other capital projects, just to redistribute these funds.
Yeah, it makes sense. And to clarify, I mean, I approve of that approach. My thought is that it's still early in the process, and that perhaps you could save that, I call it a maneuver, where we kind of move money that's already been appropriated back to town meeting, reappropriate it. We could almost save that for a future time. We have 3 years to spend this $4+ million, or the $7.5 million. And I think we're still in year 1, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, we have a little bit of time, and so we could maybe save that, put it on the back burner. It's just an idea, and I'd be interested to know what the other board members think. But that's all for now.
Thanks, Lynn. Let me go to Ben.
Sure. So, we've had pretty detailed discussions on all these projects in our previous meetings. And so I'm not going to rehash that now, except to say that, I support all these projects. And I think that, I don't disagree with what Glenn just said. But there are so many questions yet to remain on this process. And we're going to submit this to the county. We don't know exactly how they're going to get back to us. And we don't know what sort of approvals or monitoring is going to take place either throughout the process. And, you know, as Jim highlighted, we've actually received a little bit of conflicting information then from the federal government since. So I don't have any issue with these projects going forward. I know, and again, I won't go into the specifics of these now, but certainly willing to, if folks have missed previous meetings where we have delved into details, you know, happy to answer any questions that people have about them, because they are all certainly very much needed throughout the town. And I think strikes a balance in benefiting as many of the residents as possible. So thanks, Jim. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Ben. Let me go to Jim O'Neill.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. First of all, I like the way that we have slow walked this process. You know, we've known about these monies for a while, and we've spent many months talking about projects. I think we've come up with a good list. I like the process we followed coming up with the list, getting input from a number of different sources, and coming up with a set of projects that meet the requirements first off, but also meet the real needs of the town and that affect the town on a town-wide basis. That's always one of the things that I look for, is, do these projects really affect large numbers of people in the town, and how we use the funds. So as Ben points out, we have talked about all these projects, and specifically these 5 that are in front of us tonight. There's other things that could be done for sure. And I think, Glenn, your point is a very good point about the town meeting. I personally go the other way in terms of just the flexibility that we gain by using the ARPA money instead of the town meeting money, for the reasons Jim Johnson cited. So I like that flexibility. And when I consider how much we've thought about this process, you know, how we've thought about all these projects and what they're delivering for the town, I just think it's the right set of projects. I also really think it's a good idea to go in with a higher number, because, Jim, to your point, these rules have been moving around on us quite a bit. We seem to be in the more flexible side of the rules right now, but it could easily go back the other way. And so to go with a higher number gives us a better chance of actually getting the full allotment and allowing us to move forward with these projects, as opposed to having to now go back to the drawing board and resubmit and all that. So I think it's the right things to do and the right projects to do. And again, I think we've been thoughtful and planful about it. And so I support the 5 projects that Jim's brought forth tonight. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Jim. I do want to say, just for the public, that there is a long list of possible projects. And these are kind of the projects that have risen up to the top of the list because they're likely fundable using ARPA money, and they're available to be done right away. There's other projects on the list that are, you know, more complicated, more expensive. Not all of them are more expensive, but one of the nice things is we'll, you know, reconsider the list of projects and have some fresh discussion, you know, around the time that we receive the money in June. And then a year later, we'll have another chance to do the same thing. So it's sort of an iterative process. We'll look for projects that are fundable and doable in the near term, and then we'll continue to discuss some of the other projects. We have way more projects that we'd like to see done as a town collectively than we're going to get money for. So it's a matter of each year reprioritizing what's important. I do like the projects that have been selected for all the reasons you have all talked about. Glenn, I understand where you're coming from. I do want to just see if anybody from school committee, capital budget, or finance committee would like to say a few words. Just raise your hand if you would, and I'll let me go first to Josette.
My question, and I'm going to be the doubting Thomas. The 21 budget, I was not overly concerned about. This budget and our next budget, I am really concerned about the sustainability. And hypothetically, if these funds do not appear, we are not committed to anything, correct me if I'm wrong, until such times as we have the funds, correct?
Well, correct, Josette. Yes. We have to
Okay.
submit this request, and their processes, and I see that Bill has his hand up, but their processes that there's a portal where you go in online, you submit your request, and they walked me through the whole process. I could watch about 6 other projects that were pending last time I looked within the last month, and you could see whether it's approved, denied, or pending action. So you can track all of it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josette. That was a great question. Let me go next to Bill Buckley.
I just want to say that generally the county approves school projects at like a 4-to-1 rate. Then I'm just kidding. I apologize. No, I think I got you O'Neill laughing, so I've done good tonight. We're very grateful to be included in this list, and I think I can also take off that hat and put on my professional hat and say Jim Johnson's the only manager of the 28 I have to deal with who gave us his list ahead of time to kind of go through and walk through with us. And I think that's just the extra effort that is going to be really helpful in this process. But generally speaking, kind of to Josette's point, it's been about a 2-week time period between 2 to 3 weeks between application and approval. So it's not months and months. And I think from the county's footing, the goal is to just make sure you're not using it for pension funds, not using it for expressly forbade purposes. However, I think I would be remiss to not talk about we have a serious amount of needs on the capital level on the school department. We're grateful to be kind of working with Jim and our staff, led by Mike Frisha, working closely with Donnie Anderson and our building principals, really going through all of our buildings. I mean, Fisher School is 65 some odd years old. There are some we're very grateful that the community has stepped up collectively to work on the middle school need, but we still have at the high school and at the elementary school level needs, many of which could very easily be utilized by ARPA. So we understand there's a lot of seats at the table, and we're very glad to be continuing to work closely with the town administration to maybe see if some of those are eligible and good fits for projects to be used by ARPA funds.
Bill, thanks. I think one of the things you mentioned is true for kind of all departments in all areas of town. If you've got ideas for projects that fit within the ARPA framework, please submit them to Jim Johnson. And that's the beauty of the process we're in. We'll have another chance to reconsider kind of everything, all our projects in another 5, maybe 6 months, whenever that money looks like it's imminent. So I think that's a great thing to remind everybody of. Thank you. Let me go next to Mark Trudell.
I got 3 questions. First one is on the process. So if they say all your projects are viable, but they're only going to fund a certain amount, does the projects that are approved automatically get funded in the next cycle, or do we have to resubmit?
Honestly, Mark, I don't know the answer to that. Maybe Bill could jump in. I know he's kind of walking a fine line between his hobby and his professional life, but I think what I've been
his vocation too, Jim.
The county administrator and I have talked a little bit about this, and he's indicated that the commissioners have been willing to go over the 25% allocation with certain projects if a town has indicated a real need for it. And I think in 1 or 2 cases, they've already done that. I know the next round of 25% is up sometime this spring, and there may be some flexibility. Can you add anything, Bill?
Yeah, no, I think Jim O'Neill made a good point. The way Walpole's proceeding is the way many communities are, and that's they're assessing, they're moving slowly. So a lot of people haven't applied yet. So there is a significant amount of funds available. So in the case of kind of Mark, to your question, Wellesley had a PFAS issue at a sewage treatment facility, and they needed more than 25% immediately. I think the way the program is structured, really, disbursement will come when you are ready to utilize it. So just because the individual projects are approved does not mean the check will be in the mail. But if you're shovel ready tomorrow with with the HVAC, if you have a buyer for the HVAC, and that at the high school, and that is approved quickly, the check will come that week. It'll just be cut. So the goal is to streamline the process, but I think it's important when we're thinking about planning, and I think Josette asked a question along those lines, that the money will be allocated for the project, but released close to when you're about to expend it. So you can lock it in, and that's fine, but the checks won't come until you're ready to really begin the expenditure or close to that. But, and that's all very flexible. I think the county's dispassionate on what the towns are doing, as long as it's permissible, that we really don't care. You guys could buy ice cream trucks if that was in the law.
My other two questions tied to the bathroom facilities at the athletic fields. We've already got water piped to the quote unquote designated area for the bathrooms, or is that actually still have to be piped in?
So we have water piped to the facility because we've needed it for the sprinkler system. We also have sewer, which was run to this facility. However, the sewer system is capped at the bottom of the project. So one of the benefits of the Winter Street sewer expansion, not only providing more sewer to residents who may want to pursue that, but it also provide a sewer line to that project.
Okay, so the 775 would basically allow the bathrooms to get connected to the sewer system.
Yes.
Is that okay? That was my big issue there, was how far away are we from actually being sewered? And the other is, I'm guessing that the funds cannot cover the layout of a snack shed, even if they were going to be part of a common building, correct?
The sewer and the snack facility will be one single facility. The bathrooms will be on one end and there'll be a vacant space. We're not going to put ovens or just going to be a sink in there, probably maybe a couple.
Okay, so the shelf of the snack bar will be structured, it just won't be fully equipped.
Yes.
Okay, but and that's not going to avoid the viability of the project, because the snack shack's not a priority of.
Not the primary use.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'm all set.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Jim? Jim, we'll turn it back to you.
So with that, I'd like, I think you have a motion drafted, Mark, that authorizes me to proceed with the submission to the county.
So I'll make a motion to authorize the town administrator to submit the first round of projects as discussed tonight to Norfolk County for consideration.
Second.
We have a motion. and a second.
Discussion?
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'll just follow up on my comments earlier. I realize I'm aware there's four board members tonight. So I'm on board with voting for all the projects here. It does give us more flexibility, so that's all I want to say.
I think your question was a good one, Glenn, and I think we're all going to need to be a little flexible as we figure out how does the process really work going through the county, and what the roadblocks are. I'm hoping that by the time we get to June, the process is a little more ironed out. We've had some experience and we'll have a little better idea of what to do. So I appreciate the question.
Sure.
So we have a motion and a second. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Glenn?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Mark? Aye.
So Mark, with that, I just have two quick updates since we have everybody in, they're related to the budget and financing. So if you don't mind, do you mind?
No, go right ahead.
So two quickie items. Jody, myself, and Lisa had a call today with Standard & Poor's for the $54 million borrowing at 3:30 today. It went very well. We were interviewed for about an hour and a half, and the rating agency indicated that they will let us know by next Monday what the percentage came in at for the borrowing rate, and your board will likely consider and vote on that on next Tuesday night. I can tell you that after the call, I received another call from our financial advisor, and he said we did some good work, and by going out this early to borrow, with the Fed recently came out with or one of his sources told me that the Fed's likely to raise the rates up to 4 times this year, and I'm looking at an article on CNBC right now it's saying that's likely also. He said you may have likely saved the town $250,000 per year over the life of the borrowing. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, but I was pretty excited to hear that number, not 250 over the life, it's 250 per year, which is a great number, and it's only going to make the tax rates lower on this override vote. So good job. Jody did an excellent job. She was worried about it for 2 weeks straight, and Lisa did an excellent job too. So my kudos to both of them. And any questions on that? I'll have much more next week when I know where our ratings came in at, but I just was really happy that we got in on the market, and it was a good call by the select board back in November to go out now and borrow the majority of that money. So, Jody, anything to add? I know you're on here. Nope, I'm assuming not. Okay. Anybody? got
Oh,
any-
yes, sorry, I do have something to add. Yeah, it was a long process preparing. I think we did a great job, as Jim said. And I just wanted to make a note that on Monday, we will be notified of our rating. I believe the percent will come after that, once the bids are in and the offices are in. So I think we get our bond rating on Monday.
Great. Yeah, let us know when you know. Thanks for all your hard work, Jody and Lisa and Jim, on getting that ready to go out to bond. I think now is the right time. We talked about that in past meetings. I can't imagine the rates are going to stay the way they are or go down, in the future. They seem to be on a trend that will start to go up. So I think this is a good thing to go out now, and I'll be interested to see how they rate the town. So that'd be great to know on Monday. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
I would just say, if my math's right, 250 a year over 30 years is 7.5 million, is it not?
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, Jim.
Yep.
Good job.
Mhm. Okay, if there's no other questions, I got one other thing I want to follow up with the board. And over the years, select board members have come to me and asked, how can we help alleviate the tax burden on some of the people who might be having a difficult time or getting older. So recently, a few of you have approached me, asked me to investigate something called a means-tested residential exemption. This exemption has been pursued by Sudbury, Natick, Concord, Reading, and Hopkinton. Such a program would allow residents over a certain age, from my research, it's either 60 or 65 or 63, who meet a certain criteria, such as living in the community for at least 10 years, possessing a home and assets below a certain level set by the town. They could receive a property tax reduction. The cost of the benefit is redistributed among all of the other residential taxpayers each year. The rate is set. I'm working with Town Appraiser Dennis Flish and Town Council Lauren Goldberg to provide the board with something that outlines what our options might be on this one in the upcoming weeks. The article I saw, I think Natick was recently considering this, and it increased certain people's taxes by about $80 per year if this is something the select board in Natick wanted to pursue. So I don't have anything formal for you, just wanted to let you know I'm looking into it. I'll come back with a formal report, kind of outlining the pros and cons, and give you some rough numbers. Again, if you did want to pursue this, we obviously have to take it to town meeting for consideration and explain it, but I'm working on it. So I'll take any questions, but I know it's kind of in the beginning stages.
Josette, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Jim, Watertown has something very similar. I don't know if it's called the same. And I have a girlfriend whose mom is 96, who's living in her own home, and she gets approximately 1/3, just shy of 1/3 off of her taxes. I don't know if it's the same program, but it sounds very similar.
It might be.
And that would be huge if it follows through, if it actually becomes a reality that the town can afford to do it, and at the same time help the seniors. That, because I've heard myself, people commenting on their new tax bills and how they've gone up. So anything we can do that will alleviate that, I think, is nothing but a plus factor.
Thanks, Josette. Ben?
Yeah, and I just said, I really appreciate Jim, you looking into this and thinking further. And I know that Dennis Fliss, and there's going to be a lot of people involved. This isn't something that happens in a couple of weeks. And these programs, and I think Josette just kind of alluded to it, there's a lot of variability in these programs, and it allows towns to find the parameters and the calculations that fit for them. And so the cost of a program like this can be remedied in a couple of different ways. There's just so many variables out there. So, starting this now, I think will get us a good look at getting our arms around the situation, having an idea of what those parameters could be, and then looking towards probably fall town meeting. Obviously, it's not going to be in the spring. Would be the goal to have something like this come forward. So, as Jim Johnson said, more to come, and I appreciate everybody taking the time and effort to look into it and gather the facts.
Thanks, Ben. Any other comments or questions? Then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. I'll do a roll call vote. Glenn,
Aye.
Ben,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Mark, aye. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and thanks for all the comments and suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Right.